Hello, and welcome to Life Coach Confidential. I'm your life coach, here to help you untangle the often painful and confusing world of modern relationships. Today, we're exploring a phenomenon that has left many feeling abandoned and bewildered. Ghosting. Ghosting is when someone you've built a connection with suddenly vanishes without explanation, leaving you in a state of uncertainty and self-doubt. To shed light on this experience, I'm introducing our guest, a courageous individual who is ready to share her first-hand story of being left in the dark. Please listen closely as she tells her story.
I thought we had something extraordinary, a connection that felt destined to grow into something lasting. In the beginning, every text from him lit up my day. We'd talk for hours about our dreams, our favorite memories, and even the little quirks that made us who we are. His voice on the phone was warm and inviting, and our silences felt comfortable, as if our souls were speaking in a language only we understood. When we first started dating, we only saw each other once a week, a pace that felt just right as we were getting to know each other. But soon enough, he began coming around more frequently. Our meetings grew from once a week to multiple times, and each encounter made me feel even more certain that we were building something real. As time went on, I started to crave more clarity about where we were headed. Naturally, I wanted to know if this was just a fleeting romance or something deeper. When I finally broached the topic, he smiled and reassured me, yes, but we can take it slow. His words made everything seem perfectly balanced, and I believed we were on a promising path. But then, subtle shifts began to unravel that sense of certainty. One day, I didn't hear from him for several days. I tried to reach out, and when he finally replied, his messages were brief, no longer filled with the thoughtful details they once held. Gradually, our daily conversations dwindled. The once consistent flow of texts became sporadic. I would write to him, sometimes receiving a reply, but more often than not, I was met with silence. I kept asking, "Is everything okay?" And he'd always say, "Yes." Yet, the change in his tone and the increasing gaps between our exchanges told a different story. Then, one day, he just disappeared. No warning, no final word, vanishing as if he had been nothing more than a shadow that slowly faded away. Looking back, it feels like a series of quiet, almost unnoticeable shifts that I now see were clues. I was starting to want more, to know where we were going, and his initial reassurances had made me believe that we were on the same path. But as his responses grew fewer and less dependable, the connection we'd built unraveled before my eyes. In a cruel twist of fate, all the subtle hints culminated in him pulling the rug from under me, leaving me with nothing but silence and a trail of unanswered questions.
Thank you for sharing that vulnerable and heartfelt account. Ghosting, this sudden, unexplained disappearance, is one of the most painful experiences in modern dating. It leaves us with a swirl of unanswered questions and self-doubt, forcing us to confront feelings of invisibility and rejection. Ghosting spans a broad spectrum of reasons. While some cases are involuntary, such as severe illness or accidents that forcibly sever communication, these are less common. On one end of the spectrum, ghosting occurs when individuals consciously choose to escape confronting difficult truths about themselves or their circumstances. This can stem from insecurities, fear of vulnerability, or a reluctance to deal with personal issues, leading them to sever ties abruptly rather than face these challenges. Predominantly, however, ghosting is an act of self-preservation that prioritizes personal comfort over the emotional well-being of others. It is a deliberate decision where individuals disregard the feelings and dignity of those they leave behind. By vanishing without explanation, they assert their autonomy in a dismissive manner, reflecting a profound lack of empathy and respect for the relationship. This more common, negative side of ghosting highlights a troubling trend in modern relationships, where avoidance is often chosen over honest communication. Yet ghosting isn't always a clear-cut case of someone simply vanishing without conscience or care. Sometimes, life intervenes in unimaginable ways. For instance, I know a woman whose boyfriend seemed to disappear off the face of the earth. After endless days of worry, she eventually received an email from his best friend. He had fallen gravely ill. Unbelievably, it was botulism from home canning, and slipped into a coma. Knowing how he lived, it made sense to her. By the time he regained consciousness, he could barely speak, but one of his first thoughts was to reach out and ease her mind. It was a ghosting that wasn't a choice at all, but a crisis no one saw coming. Let's look at some plausible reasons behind ghosting. Understanding these can offer some closure, even if they don't justify the hurt. Out-of-control circumstances. As with the coma story, sometimes unforeseen events, severe illness, family crises, accidents, can cause someone to vanish involuntarily. They're not intentionally ghosting. Life has simply taken a sudden turn. Lies and deception. Sometimes, ghosting happens because the other person isn't honest about who they are or what they want. They may be concealing significant truths about their life or intentions, and instead of facing the consequences, they choose to vanish without explanation. Running away from commitment. For some, ghosting is a way to avoid the responsibility of commitment or future expectations. They aren't ready to be honest about their feelings or intentions, so they opt for silence as an escape. Not a match. Even when initial attraction is strong, one person might eventually realize that the connection isn't what they hoped for. Instead of communicating that mismatch, they simply disappear, leaving the other person to wonder if anything was real. Loss of interest. Attraction can fade over time. When someone's interest dwindles, they might withdraw without explanation, rather than face the discomfort of expressing their true feelings. Being turned off. Sometimes, discovering a particular trait or behavior acts as a deal breaker. The other person may choose to ghost as a way to exit the situation without the need for confrontation. Pursuing the past or a new connection. Sometimes ghosting stems from unresolved feelings or shifting attractions. The ghoster may be emotionally entangled with someone from their past, decide to rekindle an old flame, or even already be developing a new connection. Instead of having an honest conversation about these changes, they choose to vanish without explanation, leaving the current relationship abruptly abandoned. Feeling pressured. When one person feels overwhelmed by the other's push, expectations, demands, or sense of entitlement, the pressure can become too much to bear. Instead of addressing the discomfort directly, they might ghost as a means of escaping the situation. Claiming freedom, a self-centered act. Ghosting can also be a self-centered act where the person in control uses silence as a way to assert their independence. They claim freedom by exiting without explanation, prioritizing their own comfort over the emotional well-being of the other. Insecurities and shame. In some cases, deep-seated feelings of unworthiness or the fear of judgment for a hidden struggle can drive people to disappear. They can't bring themselves to be vulnerable, so they retreat into silence. While none of these reasons can erase the hurt you feel, understanding them might help you see that ghosting is more about the other person's inability to communicate or handle vulnerability than it is a reflection of your worth. As you reflect on this episode, consider, how have these reasons for ghosting resonated with your experiences or the experiences of people you know? What steps can you take to protect your self-esteem and ensure that someone else's inability to communicate doesn't define your value? How might you find your own closure, even if you never get the answers you deserve? Remember, while ghosting is a painful experience, it's not a reflection of your worth. Your feelings are valid, and taking time for self-reflection and healing is essential. If this discussion has resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe, share your thoughts, and join our community as we navigate the complexities of modern relationships together. Thank you for listening to Life Coach Confidential. Stay true to yourself and never forget that you deserve genuine connection and respect.